Hey founders, welcome to another episode of the Gab Lab. So glad that you are here. This is a show that is designed to bring you financial intelligence that won't only just blow your mind, but it's there to help you build your bottom line as well. Today's episode is being championed by our good friends at Community Future Sunrise. They're in Southeast Saskatchewan to help business owners build their business and nail their numbers. I'm your show host, Taunya Woods-Richardson, and today's episode is all about change management. Who doesn't need a little bit of that after COVID? Our pro today, our Nail the Number pro, Astrid DesLandes. She's a senior organizational management consultant. She's got some tremendous insights on this topic. So glad you're here for this one. Come on over. We'll see you in the lab. All right, welcome to the show, Astrid. Welcome to the lab. I am so happy, beyond happy you're here. There's so many reasons for my joy and appreciation for you being here today. But I will say this whole topic of change management, you really got me thinking about the topic because we go way back, and change management isn't at the forefront of the conversations that many founders are having in their business, but I suspect they're going through it every day. They just don't know that they're going through it. So I was wondering, in this episode, you're going to give us a whole bunch of great information, lay out the framework for us, but do you mind starting off with really just clarifying for founders, small business owners, what change management is? What is it exactly?
So change management is, in my own, I have my own take on this, and my take is that as a consultant, I'm there to help organizations, small, medium, large, be able to adapt to any change that happens. Some of these changes are small, some of those are larger, some of these are intended, some of those changes are not intended. But to me, ultimately, it goes down to the individual, because when each individual within an organization trusts in their ability to handle change, even if they don't know what's coming their way, then it changes the whole organization. And the way we help each individual trust their own ability to handle change is by equipping them. It's by communicating with them. It's by helping them trust in themselves. And we do that through a series of I do that through a series of tools that are given to them. They need to feel like they're always in the know as to what's going on, and they need to feel that they've experienced successes with some of the changes that they've gone through.
So how would you describe, what would be an example of change? The smallest example up to something big like COVID.
Well, there's two types of changes, I would say. There are the types of changes that are external, and then there's the type of changes that are internal. So, for example, internally, there could be a new method of doing the work for whatever reason. There's a new product that you decide to launch. So now we're going to have to do things differently. Or there's a new process for whatever reason. A new organizational structure. You got purchased, you purchase another company, you split up, and now you have to do things differently because your HR resources have changed. There could be also some changes in terms of personnel policy or employee benefits. Anything internally that can change can be a disruptor to the the main functions of the organization. There's also external change forces. So, for example, technology. An example of technology change is that the software applications that you use to run your business, your vendor is no longer supporting the platform that they're operating on, for example. So now you need to go out there and look for something new, whether you decide to stay with the same vendor and their new product, or you decide that this is an opportunity to look out there and see what else is out there. So that's an impact from technology that's from the outside. It could be competition. Competition may have streamlined their own way of doing business, and now you're trying to catch up. It could be government actions. So, for example, some changes, some regulatory and compliance changes. Now you have to change the way you're doing business. Economic variables, social values saying, for example, we don't want to use this type of energy anymore. We want to move towards this type of energy. And now all of a sudden you have to think, okay, how do I survive this? And of course, pandemics. That's another external type of change that is forced upon a company.
Pivot, everybody, right? I think everybody knows that word now. Pivot. So for small business owners, founders, I'm throwing small out there, but we know that there's a vast array out there. It feels like to me, correct me if I'm wrong, that they are in the middle of change every day and really just very reactionary for the most part. Like I think back to my past experiences, which you know about, my present experiences. Every day we're hit with something, right? Something gets canceled, or technology doesn't work, or somebody didn't deliver on deliverables, and we have to hire somebody new in that space. So is change management really just the process of being intentional and hopefully proactive to understanding what's coming our way and how to best address it? Or
yes, yes. It and then it wades into the area of risk management, but I'll talk about that during the second portion of this interview.
Okay.
But something that is important to understand is to look at an organization and at the changes that impact an organization through the holistic view of three things: technology, processes, and people. So let me give you an example. So technology, for example, I just give you an example already, that you have to change your technology because your provider is no longer supporting the platform, and now you have to change it. But let's look at the impact of that. Now, the technology change may be an opportunity for you to review your processes. We used to do this and had 12 steps. Do we need all 12 steps? So now, looking at the processes, it's an opportunity to say, okay, how can we streamline our processes? How can we add some things that used to fall by the wayside before that? So that's one impact. The second impact, area of impact, is the people. So when there's a change in technology or in processes, then the people have to learn how to do things differently. They're the ones operating the technology. They're the ones making sure that the processes are being kept intact. If there's a change to the processes because of, again, regulatory or compliance or something like that, you may have to change your technology to reflect how you're going to support those processes with this technology. Again, your people there are key in maintaining the integrity of both your technology and your processes. And then if you have changes within the people, so whether you have to do things with fewer people or with more people, if there's a merger, for example, that is absolutely changing your processes. When two companies come together, it's also absolutely changing your technology. Which one of the two companies' technology are you going to use? I've had clients who have had to deal with this. Most, and I would say every merger has to do with how do we bring our technology, our processes, and our people together? Who's going to get what kind of role? So whether the change is within the technology, the processes, or the people, it affects the other two areas. So the one thing then to keep in mind is, as a corporation, as a company, as an organization, what is your purpose and what is your function? Because that's going to be your North Star.
Okay. So I just want to, I want to grab this because I think this is also important. So the North Star becomes the purpose and the function of what the company is doing. So we get a handle on that. And then as we move through the operations, and potentially like COVID did, right? None of us really had an opportunity to adapt to it and put together strategies. We were in the middle of crisis and trauma, and what do we do? But then understanding as conditions start to impact our business, I'm hearing these three pillars of understanding each cause and then the effect that it's going to have on technology, process, and people. And I'm wondering there, I had a fascinating conversation today, and I'm wondering if it dovetails into this, that as the leader of the company, it is then our role to communicate that vision or that plan with the people, so that it's about making sure that the communication of those changes and the impact of those changes are mitigated to the best of our ability by communicating everything up front and with authenticity and transparency. And sorry, I'm dovetailing two conversations here, but I can see the overlap now. And that is, am I on the right track with that?
Absolutely. So the leadership of an organization is always either the ultimate success for the organization or the ultimate failure. It always goes back to the top. And the communication of anything, any changes, any progress, any innovation to the people within the organization is key. But often we communicate one way, and we think, I've had clients who said, we've communicated, and so people have opened the email. So we have an open rate of 60%. But did they read it? Well, we have no way of knowing that. That's problematic. Because you absolutely need to have a 360 going on all the time. The same way as a good organization does not do yearly performance reviews because it's too late. It has to be ongoing. You always have, as the leader, you have to have your finger on the pulse of what's going on in your organization. If you issue a message to your organization, you have to know how it's being received. And then you take this and then you respond to that. And it's ongoing. It just cannot stop.
Wow.
When I was talking about the purpose and the function, and this is what a leader has to be able to communicate as well. One example that I have is I had a client in the Northwest Territories, and they were providing electricity to the Northwest Territories. So I asked them what their purpose was, and they said, our purpose is to provide electricity. And by asking them a lot more questions, because they were trying to find better ways of being of service to their stakeholders and to their customers, they realized that in fact, providing electricity was their function. It wasn't their purpose. Their purpose, usually the purpose is a lot more holistic, a lot more, it's higher. And their purpose was to keep people alive. Because in the Northwest Territories, if you don't have electricity, often you don't have heat. If you don't have heat, you will die in your home. And so their purpose was to keep people alive. Their function was to do it through the providing of electricity.
Yeah.
Their purpose. So as an organization, what is your function? And then within your organization, what is the function of every sub, group kind of thing? But what is the ultimate purpose? Because the purpose is what every group and subgroup within your organization should be able to go back to. That is your true North Star.
Oh, Astrid, I love that. That is very powerful. And it reminds me, you know him and you love him, Ryan Townsend from William Joseph, right? And he was talking about brand and the promise of your brand and what are you really delivering. And then in one other episode, we were talking about, this was from an angel investor that was saying, what value are you delivering? Like, get me excited about what you're doing. Like, what are you doing? And so I love that all of these messages, the messages overlap. And this is one that's coming back to me now over and over again through every episode, is really understanding that purpose. Because the other thing that I'm getting excited about here is I know that the episode champion of this specific episode comes from a region, and we're seeing a lot of this in Western Canada, but resource dependent businesses, right? And I suspect that when you've nailed your purpose, that purpose can be applied across multiple industries. You don't get stuck into one bucket.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh.
And the trauma, I would say, that our world is going through right now and has been going through for the past year has changed a lot of our focus. And it's made us more aware of our reliance on each other, even though we don't get to hug anymore, even though we don't get to touch each other. We have become more reliant. The technology has played a huge role in that, but we are becoming more reliant on each other. And that reliance is also asking us to elevate the questions that we ask about what we do. So to move from function to purpose.
Oh, I love that. Okay, I feel like we could have a whole other episode on that. And I want to bring it around at the end of this segment to tap into then, once we understand that purpose, as changes come up now, not to the purpose remains static, the function may change, but then the question as the leader becomes, how does it impact these three pillars of technology, process, and people? And then communicate. And what I love about what you added about communication, and I don't know what the ratio is. I should know the ratio, but it's X% speaking and X% listening, right? And so that listener, it's not just throwing the email out, it's listening to the response back, and then managing how people are feeling through that change. Is that right? Or is that another segment? Do I
No,
stop there?
that's exactly what it is. It's part of the communication aspect. It has to be, I call it three-way communication, because what happens is that we've got one-way communication. We communicate to our audiences, okay? Then they get to communicate back to us, which is great. But if we educate our audiences well, they support and teach and communicate amongst themselves. And you're creating a whole new level of engagement.
Yes. So powerful. Founders, I hope just sit in that. We're going to take a break here at the end of part one, all about change management. Astrid, that was really powerful. So whatever, I have a whole bunch of notes that I actually want to write down. So take this moment, write down these notes, and we're going to see you back here in the lab for part two. Astrid, thank you for being here. And a huge shout out to our episode champions, Community Future Sunrise. Thank you so much for requesting this topic. It wasn't on my radar, and you forced me to go out and find the expert to come and speak to this. And I think it's a very important topic for a lot of founders to actually just contemplate in our business. So thank you. We'll see you back in here for part two.